Hi, and welcome back to ctla Chronicles. I wanted to do an update on my cousin Renee, who I kind of touched on in that last podcast, where she started having some neurological problems. They thought she had a stroke. She was admitted to the stroke unit. They did, I think, like a CT scan and found some lesions in her brain. And I kind of wanted to elaborate on that. Not everybody with ctla4 haploinsufficiency will develop brain lesions. It's kind of a rare occurrence within the rare realm of ctla4, but they can show up anywhere in your brain. They look a lot like MS lesions. They can show up in your spinal cord. I've talked to other families who had not just neurological issues, but then also, symptoms of certain types of paralysis, or where it really impacts the nerves and stuff in the lower half of the body, or even going to organs and causing organ damage. So it can get really complicated. It can get really scary, but it is not like a common manifestation. It's usually not one of the first manifestations of the disease either. And it wasn't for her. This is just one of the problems with genetic diseases, where you can have really vague symptoms your whole life, and then something triggers this gene to really turn on, and then you start having problems as an adult. But then at that point, most of these doctors think that it's environmental, and a lot of autoimmune diseases are caused by environmental changes and gene impacts, and things get really complicated when you start talking about genetics here. But for ctla4, I believe when I was reading about this, when I was editing the stuff for the last podcast, the average age of onset is actually 26, but it can happen at any point from infancy all the way until, late into adulthood. My mom was 38 before she really got sick. I was sick as a child from about the age of 6 onward. And then at one point when I was 10, I was crippled for an entire year with incredibly severe arthritis. I was in and out of the children's hospital almost every day. It was miserable. They never really pinned down what it was. At one point, they said it was post-strep reactive arthritis, but now, knowing what we know, that wasn't it. It was the ctla4 haploinsufficiency attacking my body. And for Renee, unfortunately, that is what is happening to her, just in different ways. So she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and that's probably not what it actually is. I also deal with extreme nerve pain throughout my body that would otherwise be classified as something like fibromyalgia. But because there's a genetic link with nerve damage and nerve pain and some of this other stuff, it's just kind of lumped in as a side effect. With that being said, she was referred to a geneticist, and they wouldn't see her without proof of having the ctla4 gene in the family. That blows my mind for a few reasons. I totally understand that for insurance purposes and for things to be covered by insurance, that you need proof of things and whatever. But this is such a rare disorder, and it's not like she's saying that her great-great-grandmother had this and she thinks she might have it. We have living family members that are older than her, younger than her, that have this. I just had a bone marrow transplant for this. It's not being made up. So crazy to me. But I love that so far we have the tools in our back pocket that we need to help. And I never would have imagined that it would be, people in our family that we're helping right now, the way that we are, and calling doctor's offices and trying to figure out what they need to get her the help that she needs. And on a Monday, so far, I think that we're doing pretty good, and I'm hoping that she gets a call sometime this week. And then once maybe we have some more information, we can have her on and interview her about how this process was for her. Going through all of this and having to deal with the medical gaslighting that she's had to deal with. Even right now, she's already had the brain scans. We know she has brain lesions. She has migraines with auras. And, she's lost the whole use of the left side of her body. It's better now, and she's it's almost like relapsing remitting MS. And if you don't know what that is, you can do a quick Google search, and it's where you have flares of MS, and then they go into remission for a period of time, and so on and so forth. But she called asking for migraine medication, and she has a history of them and whatnot, and they refused to give it to her, which is crazy. Why? But I digress. we'll touch back on that, I'm sure, after she gets some more answers. There is a 50% chance that Renee is going to be positive for the ctla gene, and that is because her mother was also positive. So there is a 50% chance that every time you have a child, if you're not doing IVF, that child will inherit the ctla gene. And then if that child does inherit that ctla gene, there's about a 70% chance that they will develop symptoms of that disease. It also depends on which gene variation you have, and because there's a lot, and most of them are on exon 2 within the gene. For ours, it's on exon 4, which is the cytoplasmic tail of the gene, and this is where it got complicated, and some of the doctors didn't think that this specific gene mutation would actually cause disease because of where it was, and so on and so forth. But between the research in England and the research in Germany, we do know that it does in fact cause disease, and it's actually very unstable and causes the gene protein to just kind of crumble. So it's not even just a deficiency, it's also a complete dysfunction or loss of function of that protein, which leads to the cascading events in the immune system where it's just kind of one thing after another and it snowballs. An example of that for me is every time I would get sick with something, whether it was the common cold or I had the flu or pick some garden variety virus that the kids bring home, I was literally gaining a new autoimmune disease every single time I got sick. We got the flu in December. My thyroid failed in January. I got a cold or something in March. I developed morphia later that month. I can't remember if I had a stomach bug or I had something else going on. And then I ended up with severe autoimmune colitis, and autoimmune enteropathy, and a bunch of other GI problems all at once. And then around that same time, all of my joints decided that they just didn't need to exist anymore, and I couldn't really use my hands or anything, and they couldn't figure it out. And I don't know, I know I've jumped around a lot in this video, but I just felt like I had to put something out there about what is happening. So if you're dealing with this rare disease stuff, and you're running into these issues with medical gaslighting and trying to get the care and trying to get into these new specialists or whatever, just know it's kind of par for the course. It sucks, but stay the path, keep badgering them, ask them what they really need. Because a lot of times when they send those denial letters back, it's not because they really need all that information. You know what I mean? So you just have to, sometimes it's better to call and ask. I was very forward with them this morning saying, I don't know exactly what you guys need because my whole genetic report, I'm not sending to you. You're not treating me, but I need to give them something so that way they have proof that we do have the ctla gene in the family. That's still crazy to me. Comment below if you've had to deal with anything like this or another crazy medical gaslighting story. I'd love to hear it.